Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of Extra Serving, an award-winning Nation's Restaurant News podcast. I am your host, Holly Petre, here with today's episode. Today, we're going to be talking about John Cywinski, who got a new job. I mean, he left Applebee, so obviously we knew he was going somewhere, but he landed somewhere very interesting, and so we're going to talk a little bit about that. And that just happened this morning on Thursday, so kind of exciting breaking news to talk about. Next, we're going to be talking about InNOut. They may be coming out east. They just opened a Tennessee office, and they're expanding to Tennessee, so that may mean that they are heading further east. We're also going to give you a recap of ICR, the yearly conference that happens from the ICR group. So before we head into that, let me turn it over to my two co-hosts.
I am Sam Oches, Editor-in-Chief of Nation's Restaurant News.
And I'm Leigh Anne Zinsmeister, Managing Editor of Nation's Restaurant News.
All right, so Leanne and I are actually in the same place, just in different rooms right now.
The office, we should clarify, not just a random place. Yeah.
We're both in the office together, but we're in different rooms because we don't want to echo for you guys. So we are separated.
Just for you. So close yet so far.
Yeah.
So close yet so far. All right. Well, let's get into some news because Leanne and I got to break the John Cywinski news. We got to hear about it together. It was very exciting. Kind of like being in the office for that.
From our colleagues, Alicia, who saw the news, and Joanna, who wrote the story.
Yeah. So that was pretty fun.
So literally you two did nothing but listen to the news. You heard it happen.
I sent out the news alert, Sam.
There you go. Okay. You did do that. Holly's just trying to take credit. Yeah.
I did nothing. I was just excited. It felt like a real newsroom again. It felt like a real newsroom again to just be like in the room and hearing things.
The room where it happens. You know? We're such nerds. These kinds of things we get excited about. It's exciting.
Okay, well, you just quoted Hamilton, so I feel like that's kind of like the nerdiest.
That's got to surpass nerddom at this point, right? That's so mainstream, but yeah, I'll take it.
All right, so let's talk about John Cywinski. Let's talk about that news.
Let's do it.
He's going to Modern Restaurant Concepts, which is, I think, a very interesting move for him. They're much smaller than Applebee's. So, I mean, what do you guys think? I just found it I saw that and I went, huh.
Well, it's an attractive job, and just to be clear, you know, it does now own Qdoba, so that makes it a more significant company because Modern Restaurant Concepts started as Modern Market out of the Boulder, Denver area, and they merged with Lemonade out of Southern California a few years back, and then the group merged with Qdoba last year. And so Qdoba obviously gave it some scale. Qdoba has something like 700 locations, whereas Modern Market and Lemonade are in the, I want to say 30 to 50 unit range each. So I think that this is a really appealing job. And John Cywinski, we talked about him on the podcast last week because we had heard the news that he was leaving Applebee's. He's a great executive. We've all enjoyed speaking with him. He's just a really smart guy, charismatic, just a good leader for this industry. And as president there at Dine Brands, you know, I'm sure looking for an opportunity to become CEO of a company. And this is an attractive one because Modern Market and Lemonade are two growth vehicles. I think Modern Market especially is a very exciting emerging brand that does high quality plated food in a fast casual setting. Qdoba has the scale that will unlock a lot of opportunity for Modern Market and Lemonade. But my assumption is this group is also going to be looking at more acquisitions. I don't know that from any information from them, other just to say that as a group with three brands, I'm sure they will continue to pursue more. And we've talked about 2023 could be a good year for that. So it seems like a good opportunity for a strong leader. John Cywinski is that. And yeah, for him, this is a chance to really make a mark on a company and three brands, two of which are really up and coming, one of which is kind of a legacy chain by now, but gives them a lot of great scale to work with.
I agree. I think this is a great move for John. My first thought when I heard the news this morning was, oh, he must read NRN, which of course we know he does because we've all met him. He comes to our events. But we've been talking for a while now about how these small emerging fast casual chains are it. Like, this is the segment of 2023. There's so much exciting stuff happening here. And so much exciting stuff ahead. And I like to think that he saw that in NRN and went, I went in on that.
We'll take credit, yeah.
And found himself a little fast casual company and became the CEO. That's how this played out in my head.
Sure. Let's go with that.
But hey, it's an exciting move. It's a different segment than he's worked with before, but I think, he's been with Applebee's for years now. I think he's ready for that next step. CEO of a restaurant company, as opposed to, at Applebee's is a huge company, but he worked for that brand specifically. So I think it's a great move. I'm excited to see what happens. It also reminds me of almost a year ago now, we were sitting here talking about Charlie Morrison when he left Wingstop for Salad and Go, and we all went, what the heck?
Oh.
You took the words out of my mouth. I was about to say the same exact thing.
Yeah, good parallel.
I'm glad we still got that brainwave thing going on from different rooms, Holly. And he's done exciting things. I mean, we're working on, a 1 year later story about that, so I won't give it all away, but I think we'd agree that was a good move for Charlie Morrison. And so same vibes here from John Cywinski.
I think something we mentioned last week that it was about how, I think executives typically know that their job is not permanent. I don't think anymore, I don't think a lot of executives go into a CEO role or just otherwise leadership role and say, okay, here is where I will be for 30 years. It just doesn't really work that way like it used to. And I think one of the reasons why is because a lot of these leaders want to have a challenge. They want an opportunity to tackle a challenge, to leave their mark on another company, right? That's what I thought with Charlie Morrison, which, he was also a board member at Salad and Go before he went over to become CEO. But in my head, not in Charlie's head, but, my guess is he saw this as a way to say, what if I could do this again? Like, he helped scale Wingstop into a behemoth, and maybe he looked at Salad and Go and said, let's do it with salads. I think people want challenges. They want an opportunity to, make something their own. And so that could be at play here. Again, I'm not in John's head, so I don't know what he's thinking. But with some emerging concepts, you do have that opportunity. Now, again, Qdoba, not an emerging concept. But in some ways, that's what makes this especially appealing, is when you have this concept like Qdoba that has scale, and these other two that are emerging. It's kind of best of both worlds, because you do have opportunity for innovation and development within some exciting upcoming brands, but you also have the scale that, again, gives you a lot more ability to negotiate prices, all the economies of scale thing.
Well, and we talked about 2023 being the year of emerging concepts banding together. So I think that we may see another emerging concept join Modern Market, and then see John take it to the scale of a Qdoba. So that may be interesting to see how that kind of goes in the vein of Charlie Morrison. So I think that it could be really interesting to see what this next year brings and what brands come on, because I think that he has a mindset for growth for everything. So I think I'm super excited to see what's coming next.
Maybe they'll acquire Subway.
We're both laughing, but we're muted.
Sure,
so
maybe.
Yeah, that was an awkward pause. They're not just staring at me thinking, what did he say? That was other breaking news that came out, I guess, last night. Subway perhaps is for sale. That wasn't on our outline, though, so I can't talk about it. Sorry, we got to hold that for another time.
I didn't think we knew enough. I held off because I don't want us to speculate too much about that.
Sure.
And I thought we didn't know enough information at the time. So
we'll leave it at that. Subway is for sale. I held off. Yeah. TBD.
You're welcome to talk about it if you'd like, Sam.
Stay tuned for more. Oh, I have lots of thoughts, but I'll save them for next week.
Wow, look at that suspense.
Yeah, cliffhanger.
Well, another really big story to come out of this week was InNOut. They are opening a Tennessee office and expanding to Tennessee. That's the furthest east they've ever gone. So this is really exciting for the brand, for the East Coast, maybe. Tennessee's not on the East Coast, but it could be a step in the right direction for the East Coast.
As our colleague Brett likes to point out, not East Coast. Very adamant to say Tennessee is not East Coast. No coast in Tennessee.
But it leads the way to the East Coast. I moved my hands in a
It's only one state over. It touches North Carolina. North Carolina's on the coast, so.
Yeah, so what do you guys think about this news? I mean, I think it's really exciting. I've never tried InNOut. I'm very pumped to try it.
We've come very close.
So I hope it comes to New York. We've come very, like, within 6 miles.
Not for lack of trying.
Within 6 miles and a few drinks and a lot of dedication, but it just didn't work out. So, we should answer it now. Well, This is, it's a big deal. I mean, unlike other brands, an announcement like this for any other brand is like a shrug of the shoulders. For InNOut, when we're talking about a restaurant that has been around for 75 years, that has the kind of cachet it does in the country and specifically in California, that is so well known for its slow and steady pace of growth. When they do something like this, it is news. I do remember last time they made an announcement like this. I believe it was when they opened in Dallas and when they expanded to Dallas. And, you know, the whole thing with InNOut is that they are committed to fresh beef. And in order to serve restaurants in parts of the country, they have to build a manufacturing facility first to serve those restaurants. And so it was the same thing that happened, I think, when they grew to Dallas. Or maybe it was Colorado, one of those two. I do remember that they announced first, we're opening a manufacturing facility. And then everybody said, oh, that means they're going to come this way. They do that for a reason. So yeah, there's clearly a indication that they're coming eastward. They said as much. They actually did, put out a statement, which is huge for them. InNOut is a pretty quiet company. And I think 2026 is what we're looking at for when they're going to come this way. Clearly a lot of opportunity. Now, I would temper it to say, West Coast, sorry for all of you listening in California. The East has its own burger brands that it loves, right? Like people think in California, InNOut is enshrined among the heavens and, gilded in gold and all that. And like, look, I like InNOut, but there are a lot of really good burger brands out there, right? So it's going to come into the East and find a lot of competition. And when you look at something like Shake Shack as a brand to compare it to, Shake Shack has expanded to now, 500 locations or something. And as we've mentioned in our content before, could possibly cross $1 billion in sales this year, which InNOut, neither of those numbers does InNOut accomplish or really come very close to yet. But I think even as Shake Shack does that, it's lost its luster, right? Shake Shack isn't as interesting. And that's no offense to Shake Shack. It's still, I think they operate at a really high level, but there used to be this sort of mystique of Shake Shack, much as there was a mystique of InNOut. And the more you grow, the less the mystique becomes. So that's what I'm interested in watching with this move is, yes, they can tap into much of the East Coast, probably a huge chunk of the US population out of a manufacturing facility in Tennessee. Who knows? Maybe they'll open in Ohio. Cool. That's great. But it's like, again, it doesn't automatically mean some huge thing. And in fact, could end up kind of hurting the mystique a little because suddenly InNOut is way more accessible than it used to be.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how it performs in a market like Tennessee, but I'll also say don't underestimate the craze of InNOut and their fans. One
True.
of the first InNOuts that opened in Dallas is 5 minutes from my parents' house. And like literally traffic was a problem for months. Like it was, don't drive down this street because that's where InNOut is and you'll get caught in the drive-through traffic jam. And that's Texas. That's, Whataburger country. People said the same thing. Like, people won't go to InNOut because we have Whataburger. They were wrong.
Yep.
So, yeah, but it will be interesting to see as they move into more and more states because I don't think Tennessee will be the last one. It'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, I think that, and what we were joking about before, but we were literally all in Denver last year for Create, and we were like, we got to go to InNOut, right? And that, again, is like, that's a unique experience to say, wow, I'm closer than I've ever been to this restaurant company. Clearly, I must go. And I still, if I pass an InNOut, if I'm traveling to Dallas or Denver, and I pass an InNOut, I'm like, they have an InNOut there. Cool, right? Because again, sort of that allure. But you're right, Leigh Anne, and you could say the same for Chick-fil-A. I mean, I remember when I was growing up in Ohio, there was no Chick-fil-A, and I don't think I had my first Chick-fil-A experience until I'm sure I was in my 20s. But that was because it was kind of this southern chain everybody talked about. And now here in Ohio, my Chick-fil-A for 5 minutes from my house is constantly slammed. Now that's a whole kind of other thing. Chick-fil-A has this kind of like whatever. It's like people obsess over Chick-fil-A, but yeah, it could be the same thing with InNOut. You're right. So yeah, we'll
Sam
see.
and I have mind melded as well because that was my next example too. So I feel like all three of us have just really mind melded together after doing this podcast for so long.
Yikes.
That we've just become
terrifying.
one human.
It's freaky. We should all be terrified.
Hey, I know that's aimed at me. I mean, like we wrote about it last week, the fact that Chick-fil-A has these lines that are causing literal public issues, that are causing governmental issues, that we're seeing people in government say you need to change what you're doing. So, I mean, I wonder if this is going to be the same with InNOut.
Maybe. We shall see.
What a positive answer there. Shrug.
It's hard to do that in my tiny little screen. Sorry.
It's fine. It made it more entertaining.
Great.
So now let's talk about ICR. That was also this week. Lots of news to come out of ICR. I'm going to turn it over to you, Leigh Anne.
Yeah, so we took a team approach to covering ICR this year. All of our editors were involved in our coverage to some degree because there was just so much going on, and all of it feels interesting right now. I feel like some years it's really easy for us to pinpoint which presentations we need to get in on, but this year there was a lot of debate, a lot of back and forth. Should I go to this one or that one? They all sound so good. And all the ones that we attended, it's true. We've got so much going on in the industry right now, which is great. Honestly, a lot of it is great. One of my first thoughts again was, wow, we were really on the nose with our 2023 predictions. And the one I'm thinking of this time is when Alicia predicted lots of optimism in the restaurant industry this year. I think every single executive that we heard speak this week said they felt really good about 2023. Companies are gearing up for growth. I heard very little about inflation, which is great because it's become like my least favorite word. I'm so sick of it. As an editor and as a consumer, like as a concept. So it was great to just hear generally people are excited about 2023. So some of the highlights, Red Robin, of course, has been struggling since long before the pandemic. They launched a 5-point plan at ICR, how they're going to return to growth this year. Another big theme that we saw this week was digital innovation, which is something that, you know, we've been talking about as an industry for at least a decade, but it has necessarily fallen by the wayside for the last few years with the pandemic. But people are really focused now on digital innovation. Multiple companies talked about digital menu boards. Noodles and Company has landed on an innovative menu that they're happy with, and now they're going all in on digital innovation. Companies are talking about their loyalty programs, all the things that they're going to do with those. Restaurants are adding kiosks. Shake Shack said by the end of the year, all of their units should have kiosks in them. Another interesting thing, kind of in line with what we were talking about earlier, is that BurgerFi, which acquired a smaller brand last year, is really excited about pursuing more acquisitions like that this year. So more smaller, emerging, perhaps fast casual companies banding together there. So lots of exciting stuff that was launched, and I think lots of interesting stuff that we'll get to keep our eye on throughout the year.
Yeah, and Darden also mentioned that they were going to acquire another brand as well. So that's right. That's following in line with the modern restaurant concepts example. A lot of potential out there among restaurant companies that clearly they see the opportunity in the market today to go out and scoop up some emerging concepts that would bring a lot of potential. I was thinking about how this is the first in-person ICR since 2020. It's really hard to believe. I wrote about this last month, but it's hard to believe that Omicron was in 2022, just because wow, it feels like it was forever ago. But, fact of the matter is at the turn of 21 into 22, we were dealing with Omicron. So first Q1, I think a lot of events ended up getting scrapped again. So it was in person. Unfortunately, we weren't there in person, but we were able to follow along virtually. But point being is it's sort of emblematic of what I think this moment in time is, which is, okay, despite, yes, there's another subvariant. Yes, China is dealing with a surge. By and large, will be the first, hopefully, full year of fully away from any kind of COVID distractions or regulations or shutdowns or anything like that. So we can return once again to growth mode. And so that's probably what we see a lot in a lot of these commitments to innovation, especially digital innovation. A lot of that's been happening on the fly the last couple of years, but now it's like, okay, well, let's do this a little bit more intentionally. Let's make sure we're lining up the kind of tech stack that's going to be smart and efficient and useful, valuable to the customers, creates a good experience, etc. And I think a lot of customers or a lot of restaurant companies could see potential, even if there's a recession, perhaps especially because of a recession. Some of that optimism could be because a recession could be a good thing for some companies, particularly QSR chains, because of the softening of the workforce, because of the more direction toward value among consumers. So it seems to me like right now this is okay. Let's prepare the way, right? Like let's get ready for a year of normalcy, a year of opportunity, and inflation and recession be damned. We're going to grow, and we're going to do that intentionally. So it seems like that resonated in a lot of the announcements that came out of ICR.
Speaking of which, we have an event called Create that's going to be in person. So we'd love you all to attend.
Not anytime soon, though.
Not anytime soon, but you write it in your calendars, you scribble it down, you get that all set to go. Just to keep it in mind that we
really
have an
paving
event
the way.
And we want you to come.
We want to give them there we go. And like the dates for the calendars.
But important, if you've been to Create before, we've done it in Denver the last 2 years. We are not going to Denver this year. Instead, we are hosting Create this year in Palm Springs, California, which I know we are all very excited about. And hopefully you will be too. It'll be a good time. You'll be hearing a lot about it in the coming months. We have a very exciting announcement coming up in the next week or two that I'm not going to say anything about now because I have no call to action. But hopefully next week we'll have more information for you.
I know exactly what you're talking about, so I can't wait to talk about it next week on the pod. We're going to really dangle that carrot in front of everyone to listen to the pod next week.
Yep.
I'll be on vacation next week, but I'm excited to listen to the pod, even though I also know what he's talking about.
We're actually just going to talk about Leigh Anne. We're going to give all the dirt on Leigh Anne when she's gone.
Well, usually when Sam and I get together, when it's Sam and I on the podcast together, we talk for like an hour.
We waste way too much time. We waste it all. Our poor listeners.
We don't have Leigh Anne to keep us in line.
Advance, my listeners.
We got to bring in Joanna or somebody.
Weeks, I promise.
Yeah, we need somebody to keep us in line. Well, you guys, it's been lovely talking with you today. What a great podcast.
Thanks, Holly.
Once again, we did it.
We did it. We did. Paul Rudd, we did it.
Yes.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining me today, and have a great rest of your day, listeners.
Thanks, Holly.